Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Average Bros Gym podcast with your hosts with eerily similar names, Corey and Croy. Sit you down and talk you through fitness, health, and life advice, which seeks to meet you where you're at. No polarizing takes, no telling you the only polarizing black and white takes, no telling you the only way to do things, just genuine advice and good conversation. So if you're watching on YouTube if you're watching, you could probably see that I'm not with Corey right now. So this has been 5 months. It is now May 15th today, something like that. So we have not recorded an episode in 5 months, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. Nothing like bad, just a lot of life changes, and a little bit of that we'll talk through today. Is kind of the subject of today's video as well. I'd like to kind of revive this podcast a little bit and kind of do more shorter form things. Hopefully get more guests in here as well, but not have those longer episodes, but something that's more digestible and something you can listen to, and hopefully we'll do this more frequently as well. But wanted to touch base and see where you guys are at, and as you can tell, we're not in the office anymore, and that has to do a little bit with some life changes as well. So back in January, I think was when we released our last episode. Since then, Corey and I both were getting new jobs at the time. Again, one of that will be, hi Murph, what's up, buddy? That will be kind of the subject of today's episode. And then Corey also moved in with Michaela, his girlfriend. So that's been, something that they've been working on, and that's been a thing for a while too, which has been great. And Meg kind of transitioned to a little bit of a new role where she was doing more work from home. So we kind of, after we hadn't recorded for a while, we kind of turned the office into more of an office combined space for both of us. Which is really nice. And so we have both of our desks in there now. And, I wanted to dust off the microphone a little bit here and just wanted to touch base. And I think that with the brightness and now that I have a laptop, it's easier to have more of a mobile space as well. So if you're watching, you're seeing Murph get his pets right now. And if you're not, you're listening to my voice, and hopefully the audio quality isn't too bad. So I left fitness. So that's kind of the topic of today's episode, and kind of a little bit about why I did that. It's multifaceted, but there's so many reasons. So for those who don't know, I've been coaching group fitness in some aspect since 2013, 2014, when I was still at undergrad in University of Minnesota. I coached there, starting off just doing coaching insanity, as well as kettlebells, some cardio interval training, and doing personal training. So since then, I've been in group fitness. I've been at Ordnance Theory for a majority of those years, for 2.5 years at Plymouth, and then about 6 or more at St. Louis Park location. Between that was at Lifetime for a little bit as well. So I've been in the industry for over a decade. And so leaving was not the easiest thing to do. It was a long period of time, and as anybody who's lived through the fitness industry, there's periods of burnout, right? And a lot of those times you have that burnout, and then eventually you kind of figure out a way to get back into it, and you realize, oh yeah, this is amazing. And I was having an extended period of burnout, and it was less to do with coaching. I think it was managerial. I've been a manager for the last 3 years, and still that was definitely added to a little bit of the frustration and the challenge of the fitness industry as well. As anybody who manages can attest, it is similar in a lot of ways across, modalities, across careers. You're responsible for other people. When something goes wrong, you're the one who has to kind of figure it out. As middle management, you often have to do what the owners or the upper management say is best, even when you disagree. And sometimes you disagree and you end up being wrong, and sometimes you disagree and you end up being right. And it's a little bit different that way. But it was tough. I think that for the most part, I was just finding some more frustrations in my day than wins. And after being in the same industry for so long, I wanted to try something new. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to do some pros and cons style. I'm going to get my phone out so I can take my notes here. Murph is in my lap hanging out with me. So obviously Murph is still doing really well. So first pro of working in the fitness industry is the people. People are great. I just love working with people. So genuinely, the people kind of made my day a lot of the times. So if you're listening to this and you were a former member at some point, thank you so much. You were amazing. I often, especially so when I first started working at Orange Theory back in 2015, 2016, I was still in my mid 20s. I was still quite, um, you know, not the smartest, or I guess, or maybe not have the most foresight behind it. And I would always, I'd have emotions and come in feeling annoyed and upset. Man, I remember one time I was driving into coach, and I was going through rush hour traffic, and I was super frustrated and just driving. And I had the kind of epiphany at that point, everybody that's coming to my class is going through the exact same traffic as this to get to my class. And I can't be an asshole when they show up and be upset and not be engaging, because they don't deserve that. They only have an hour with you every single day. So we were genuinely the best part of people's day. And I think that really motivates you a lot to be a better person and to be more engaging and outgoing. And, the common phrase that you say is like, the attitude determines your latitude. I know that's kind of like silly. I don't know where that came from. But generally, when you were, when you were out there and you were being kind and you were being engaging and having a good time, regardless of what you were feeling inside, I mean, that really did put you in that mindset. I often left work feeling better than when I came in. So the people were amazing. Those connections are amazing. I know that a lot of people wished me really well when I left, and unfortunately, I wish I could stay in touch with all of them and communicate with them really consistently, and I just can't mentally. But it's something that's, seriously, those relationships mean a lot. So people are definitely top billing for pros. It's an amazing industry, and if you let yourself get energized by others, you're going to have a great time. You still have negative interactions with people, but majority of time, like, you really do promote a lot of positivity and help well-being. And so, people are definitely top bill. That being said, if you don't get energy from others, it can be tough. I like to say that my social battery is much higher. Doesn't mean it still doesn't drain, but it's a bigger battery than a lot of people's. A con of the working in the fitness industry would just be, I mean, hours. Ultimately, it's not bad working early morning and getting done by noon or 1. It's interesting. It's just like most people work an 8 to 4, 9 to 5, right? That's the classic. So it can feel like you're kind of opposite schedules from people sometimes. That being said, weekends, typically you're working like, half a day. You're working from, 6 or something to maybe noon or 1, or maybe a little bit later. But, you typically have your weekend nights off, which is nice. And if you're not opening the next day, and you only opened one weekend, or you only worked one weekend day, so you did have that time still to hang out with friends. So that was always quite nice. But, getting up at 3:30 in the morning, 3:45 in the morning, having to be at work by 4:30. It can be tough. I don't think I ever slept well on any of those nights. You know what I mean? I think you probably max amount of sleep that I got would probably be 5 hours. A lot of the times, and different fitness places can be different, of course, as far as, are you working 3 days a week at this time frame, and then you're doing the exact opposite. And we never had clopins, of course, so you're never closing then opening, because at St. Louis Park, Orange Theory, we were, our last class was 8 p.m. I think we were the only group fitness areas that had 8 p.m. class, which was nice for those people. But yeah, we never did a close and then an open, because that would be a very quick turnaround. But yeah, it was always kind of tough to balance that, especially, as Meg and I got more serious and started dating and moved in together. It's tough to have those moments, because, she's getting ready for bed as I'm getting home if I'm closing. And so it was nice to be able to have a little bit more time together, and the stability of hours is kind of one of the reasons why I did switch. Not the only reason by far, but one of the reasons for sure. It's just a little bit more stable, and some of those hours when you're kind of up and down can be challenging to really have more of a social life, or, the sleep that you want as well. So if any like nurses and people that work in the medical industry, like, you guys work harder hours than even fitness people do, 12-hour days, things like that. And there were days I had those, but you can kind of probably attest to a little bit of that frustration. But another pro would be the fact that you get a ton of movement in. So if we're looking at fitness, we can't look at if you have one fitness job, it's the same as every other fitness job, right? Because, if you're doing personal training at a box gym, at a Lifetime, at a Crunch Fitness or whatever, where you're doing group fitness training where you're constantly on the move, it is a little bit different, but ultimately you're moving around most of the day. And, at Orange Theory, let's say a typical block of coaching is like 3 to 4 classes, right? They typically don't want you doing any more than 4, and even 4 is kind of a stretch in a row at least. So in 3 classes, I could walk probably about 10,000 steps, maybe a little bit more. And that's not to, and then you count the demoing and the exercises you're doing, the movements you're doing with dumbbells, without dumbbells. And yeah, you got a lot of activity in. I always like to say that, you got to find activity all around you when you're trying to get in better shape or lose weight or things like that. Like you have to move more, right? Most of the calories you burn in the day don't come from exercise. They come from non-exercise activity, thermogenesis. And I think we've talked about that in a previous episode. But what other movement are you doing besides exercise? Taking the stairs, walking further, dancing, moving, like even just, stepping your ankle or moving your foot, things like that. That's all movement, right? And did a lot of that when you were coaching, of course, right? I wasn't really exercising, but I was constantly in motion. And right now I'm working, I guess I didn't even say what I'm doing now. So I'm working as a leasing specialist with an apartment group, and it is great. I do enjoy it, and I do get more movement than I would say a typical office job. But still, I'm only getting about 10,000 steps per day, whereas before it was I was getting 10,000 steps just in my 3-4 hours of coaching. So it definitely does play a big role, something you have to look out for, and something that is a big pro of working in the fitness industry. Is just that you will typically, if you are doing everything else correctly, you're going to be in pretty good shape. So another con, and this is something that I've noticed in my industry now. Another con of fitness is kind of the emphasis on immediate sales or kind of micro sales. And this is with Orange Theory, but it's with other, places as well, is that there's a large emphasis on making the sale right away. Someone comes in, they take an intro class. What are we presenting to them? And, are they leaving that class and not having signed up for a membership? And there's probably statistics behind it saying, oh, if someone leaves and they're X% less likely to sign up. And I understand that because you want to capitalize on someone's good feelings. And a lot of the times, that what was nice about sales and fitness is, it's going to be helping that person. They come in, like people have been waiting for a year to get in shape, and they come in for a workout, and then, they're still in their old habit of, not moving, or they're still in their old habit of, oh, this is a luxury I can't afford. So then they leave, and you're thinking to yourself, man, like they came in with all this intensity of wanting to join, and now they're gone, and despite having a great, workout. And so you're kind of like, are they going to go right back to sit on the couch? So that is definitely a factor as well. And so I understand the need for it, but you were measured very harshly on closing percentage. And how quickly you closed. Like, did you close when this person was in the door, right, before they left? Weekly check-ins, like what's going on at the closing percentage? Why is it low? Why is this happening? What membership are they buying? Things like that. And so there's definitely a gray area where it's like, yes, your membership is definitely promoting health, and ideally you want someone working out more than twice a week, more than 3 times a week. They have to be moving more. But there is also kind of a harsh critique, if you will, if that didn't happen. So that was definitely a challenging aspect to it. It kind of felt like you were almost like a failure, like you were failing if you didn't as well. What I have right now with leasing is it's much more of a long game, which I think just fits my skills better. And so I will say, maybe I just wasn't suited to that kind of a little bit more direct and immediate sales approach. And maybe I'm kind of more of the long game kind of guy, and anybody else in sales, I mean, these metrics are nothing that you haven't experienced. I think sales in general, regardless of what you're selling, you're going to have those critiques and people kind of checking in weekly, and your numbers you have to hit, things like that. But I think just for me, I was more suited to the long game kind of establishing a relationship and having conversations back and forth, and that's been benefiting me for sure in my current role. So a pro of the fitness industry is it can be quite lucrative. So I think I was blessed with being able to coach at Orange Theory for a long period of time and have that be my only job. That depends on where you're working. Of course, St. Louis Park was a larger suburb. It's very, very close to Minneapolis. It's pretty much just an extension of Minneapolis. And so you have a lot of different communities in the area, residents as well as businesses. So you're getting a lot of traffic, right? And you typically have a larger class size. You earn more pay. I was adept at handling larger class sizes. People liked my classes. I was popular. So I was getting, not that they were putting me on like great classes just because, I earned those over a long period of time, but definitely that monetary value was very nice for me. I was making good money. And so I could stay there, long term over 6.5 years. So the money can be really good. A lot of the times in other areas, you have to establish more of a base. You have to be there for a long time. You have to be a personal trainer for a long time. People have to know your name. You're relying a lot on referrals. So if you have a full slate, full schedule, you can make a lot of money. Now, it depends on where you work, because a lot of people work on commission. Like if someone's paying $100 for personal training, how much of that are you getting? How much of that is the gym getting? That's a big difference here. I will say that Orange Theory's pay structure in that sense was very generous. If you could coach, 16, 20 classes a week, or if you had a high populated area, you were making good money there. So that plays a big factor as well. Anybody else can chat about too. Some people do a little bit more kind of multiple different stations. People have a full-time job and they work fitness on the side. Some people do multiple different fitness studios. And that actually brings us to one of our cons, is that a lot of people in fitness, if they don't have a full-time setup at Orange Theory, we were thankful that we had you had full-time offers, so you were able to have health insurance and benefits and things like that, which was great. However, it didn't work for every studio, because if you're working full-time but your classes are smaller in general, you're gonna have a harder time making that money that you need to survive, right? Because you only have 3 coaches. It can be challenging. So, hey Murph, what's up, buddy? So I was thankful in that, right? But a lot of people are working fitness studios that don't offer that kind of deal, right? They don't offer the full time because they've got 6 classes a day. It doesn't really work out. Orange Theory, we had 12 classes Monday through Friday, right? But if you go to a typical fitness studio, they might have like a 5:30, a 6:30 a.m., something like that, like a morning session. They won't have another class until noon, right? Lunch hour. Then as soon as noon is done, it's like, oh, well, next class is 4 p.m., right? After work. So it's harder to make it work that way. So they have a lot of people that'll work at multiple different studios, right? They might do personal training one area at a gym, and then they coach at a group fitness facility. Then they might do online training. So you can be pulled in a lot of different areas, which can make it tough when you are, doing taxes in the first place. But it can make it tough to really have a consistent income, right? So like if you're one of your areas is lacking, well, then you're losing a bit of your income. Let's say, your gym is cutting one of the classes that you coach. Okay, well, then you have to make that income up elsewhere. It's not as easy as having just kind of that straight up hourly or salaried income that you'd be getting from a different career. And that's not unique to fitness, but it is a difficulty of fitness. So anyways, those are some pros and cons. If you are thinking about working in the fitness industry, kind of think about what I talked about and kind of how that might fit for you as well. Remember that there's a lot of personal freedom to working in the fitness industry, depending on kind of where you work, which can be really nice. But you are more of a self-starter, especially if you're doing kind of personal training and you're doing it like contracting, and you're doing it like, I'm gonna train out of a gym. Like let's say like I'm gonna train out of Los Campeones. Well, you're paying them to be able to train out of that gym, and then you have to market yourself, right? They're not going to do it for you, right? So you have to really market yourself, establish a firm brand. What do you want? Who are you targeting? What do you think people are missing? And then go from there. I mean, that's why I started this podcast. Not that we are, successful or making money from this, but the idea is, okay, well, I see a ton of just rampant nonsense online, and this was a way to kind of just meet you where you guys are at, because like fitness, a lot of people will never like fitness, and like maybe this is the podcast for people who don't like fitness. The fitness podcast for people who don't like fitness. Cool, that's what it is. But so keep in mind that if you're getting into the fitness industry, you're going to be doing a lot of marketing of yourself. So it really would maybe help. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're in school, right? Like maybe if you can take like a marketing class, take a business class. If you have like online classes that you can take, or like seminars, or like watch a video or something like that, like get Canva, like learn how to market yourself a little bit, as well as find a niche for things that you don't see people training, or that people that you see a lot of. For instance, you might love training athletes, but if you're working in a gym that has a ton of people in their 40s, 50s, and you see them not working with anybody, and you're like, wow, like all these athletes are working with other coaches, I really want to train athletes, but this entire population is being neglected or just not being serviced, like that could be your ticket, because everybody deserves that kind of attention and that kind of structure. So think about that as well. Otherwise, I wanted this to be a little bit shorter, so I think 20 minutes here is pretty quick. Hopefully everything is good with the audio. Again, this is the first time I'm trying this entire setup. I'm holding a microphone in my hand right now that's not even connected to a sound, what's the word for it? A mixer. Yeah. The mixer's in the closet. I probably could break it out, but this was the first one I'd done for a while, so I just wanted to test it out and see how it worked. So hopefully it goes well. So other news, Meg and I are, so she did a half marathon last August, and I am now doing the same one with her this upcoming August, called the Gopher Badger half marathon. I had the idea of doing a little bit of like a charity donation, so I'm going to work on getting that set up. I think that would be a very cool thing to do as a way to raise money, raise awareness while I'm training for something. I'll be using my social media as well to kind of help broadcast that as well. So you can always give us a follow. My social media, my Instagram is at Croy, CroyBou, Croy Boo. I think I might have signed out of the Average Bros Gym podcast one, but if I can get back in there, I'll promote that via the podcast Instagram as well. But definitely really want to kind of just help raise awareness for a good cause and raise some money while following along with my training and our training. So there's a gentleman, let me kind of find his Instagram here, and I'll post this on actual socials when we're starting to do it, and I kind of make my first post here. But his name is Jeremy. So his Instagram handle is Run Collier, so Run Collier. He kind of does this stuff for a living, is trains these people for these like endurance challenges to raise money. So he's a really cool guy. He's a resident at one of the properties I work at right now, and it's just really nice. And he kind of helped send over some kind of basic training regimens for half marathon. So I'll be kind of following along with that. So give him a follow, take a look at what he does as well. We'll be kind of promoting that and hopefully raise some money for a cause yet to be determined. I got to figure that one out, but I have a good idea in my head. So anyways, everybody, hopefully you have a great rest of your day whenever you're listening. Right now, the Timberwolves just won their second round matchup against the Golden State Warriors. So we're moving on to the Western Conference Finals for the second year in a row. Hence the hat that I'm wearing if you're watching the YouTube video. So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Stay tuned for the next episode at some point. Still have some opportunity to get some guests on, as well as some new topics we want to chat about as well. And Corey doesn't know I'm recording this. He's doing his own thing right now. So I'm going to probably chat with him and see if we can get him on as well. We might be doing... we could definitely do a in-person one as well, but this wouldn't be in the studio. I have to mix up a little bit. So anyways, guys, hopefully you're having a good day. I've said that 3 times now, and we'll talk soon. Bye.